Hello and welcome to the Director's Concepts podcast with me, Tom Henfrey. On this podcast, I'll be discussing the fear of the unknown, which is the underlying concept which informs the three themes that I utilise to create horror in my film, Mother's Angels. The three themes my film explores are mental illness, the supernatural, and the breakdown of relationships in families. Although I will discuss these themes individually, I want to emphasise that they are used in tandem with each other. Thus, the distinction between what theme is making the film scary is always blurry. To explore these themes, I shall be examining how a mixture of films and series utilise these themes in order to create horror, as well as discussing how I have done so in my film Mother's Angels. Before we get into in-depth analysis, let's first recap on what my film is about. Mother's Angels follows Joel, a disturbed 18-year-old boy, and his mentally unstable mother Siobhan, as they escape the clutches of the local authority to perform an ancient ritual. He seeks to understand the truth, she seeks an escape from their current circumstances, whilst darker forces have their own intentions. Now we're up to speed with the story, and before we talk about themes, we must first understand the concept of fear and how it is created. Fear is our emotional reaction to something that is dangerous, or something that makes us feel unsafe or unsure. It is both a psychological and physiological reaction which prepares us to either deal with the cause of the fear or run from it. The causes of fear can come from a great number of different stimuli and are not the same for every person. However, appraisal theory offers us a more consistent understanding of these causes, which is the theory this analysis will subscribe to. Appraisal theory essentially describes fear as an emotion that is generated when we cannot reach certain goals, once we have evaluated the situation. A good example to understand this theory with is the fear displayed by the character Nancy in the film The Shallows. Nancy is a surfer who is attacked by a great white shark, whilst out surfing alone on a secluded beach in Mexico. In a bid for survival, she becomes stranded on the floating, decomposing carcass of a dead whale, which is what drew the shark into the bay in the first place. The rest of the film documents her journey from the carcass back to the beach in order to survive the shark attack. Looking at this film through the lens of appraisal theory, Nancy's fear comes from her uncertainty of success in achieving her goal due to the hungry shark that she cannot see or control, which jeopardizes her goal of getting back to the beach alive. The audience then empathizes with Nancy's fears in the situation, which is what creates the horror for the audience. This fear that is created by the uncontrollable elements, which are goal inconsistent, is also the basis of fears that are elicited by my film, as the themes that are explored jeopardize the societal goals of a happy and safe life. Now we understand the concepts of fear, let's start the analysis by beginning with the origin of all fear, the fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown has been described as an individual's propensity to experience fear caused by the perceived absence of information at any level of consciousness or point of processing. In short, not understanding or not knowing something scares us because we're unable to establish what that something is and whether it poses a threat to us, meaning we're unable to prepare ourselves to respond to the situation. Horror films capitalize on this by making the unknown the threat in the film, often only giving the audience as much information as the characters have, or just a fraction more to establish what's going on and whether the characters are in danger. For example, in the film Hereditary, Ari Aster creates an overwhelming feeling of discomfort and fear as the audience watches the Graham family unwittingly succumb to their demonically instigated fate. Through drip feeding the observant audience member little clues as to the demonic nature of the threat, through small demonic cult symbols appearing in the back and foregrounds of key scenes, Aster is both limiting our knowledge of what is happening and allowing us to be one step ahead of the characters most of the time. This creates fear for the audience as we understand that the characters are in danger, but we're not fully aware of how or why, playing on our fears of the unknown. The concept of the unknown underlines my analysis of the three core themes identified in my film. Let's first examine the theme of mental illness. Mental illness is a recurring theme in many of the horror genre's most recent offerings, and in Mother's Angels. Mental illness is perceived as scary because as a society we have a poor understanding of its causes and a widespread fear of succumbing to it because there is a lack of understanding in how to effectively treat it. The most frightful impact of mental illness is its ability to affect the points of view or understanding of the truth of those that it affects. This is commonly used in horror films to build uncertainty within the audience as the mental illness of the character distorts not only the character's perception of reality, but also the audience's. This manipulates the audience's preconditioned fear of the unknown, creating tension within the story, as the audience is unsure whether to trust the accounts being presented. The film St. Maud creates fear through playing with Maud's relationship with God, making it unclear whether it is real or the result of mental illness. The cause of this mental illness is only briefly depicted as a traumatic event in her previous job. However, the audience is never clear on what actually happened. This inability to trust Maud's version of events and a lack of clear understanding of the causes of her mental illness taps into the audience's fear of the unknown. It makes Maud's account of events feel vague and untrustworthy. This disturbs the audience, making them on edge and unsure what to believe. Similarly, Hereditary plays on the larger societal anxiety surrounding succumbing to mental illness. We watch it cause dysfunction and suspicion amongst the family, slowly tearing it apart. The film focuses on how Annie's fears of inheriting mental illness from her family cause her to lose her mind, becoming unhinged and fulfill her greatest fear of destroying her family herself. The film capitalizes on the audience's fear of losing control over ourselves and our own fates. The fear in this film is created by the audience watching Annie driving herself insane, and in turn achieving the outcome she was most scared of. This emulates what some sufferers of mental illness describe as being estranged from themselves, making the audience feel helpless, exploiting our own fears of losing control. The Babadook combines some of my other themes, family and the supernatural, while creating a metaphysical monster, the Babadook, to illustrate the ill effects that grief can have on a person if they fail to deal with it. The mental illness in this film is not as explicit as in some others, like Hereditary. However, the film depicts the decline of a mother because of the emotional torment of losing her husband. The film uses the unhinging of the mother to create tension and fear as a projection of traumatic and disassociated feelings and experiences. The tension is revealed through a series of encounters with this unknown monster that is like her child's nightmares. The monster is an analogy for the grief she feels for her dead husband and captures the audience, making them feel jumpy and uncertain about the mental capacity of the mother. This film underlines how mental illness or emotional turmoil can be exploited to create fear. Mother's Angels utilizes similar fears as these example films. Joel and the audience are never sure if Siobhan's supernatural claims are real or just the effects of her own mental illness. Doubt is cast when Siobhan tries to take her own life after claiming she's in contact with an angel. Her instability is confirmed when authorities, which we're taught to trust, deem her to be unsafe to herself and family, so remove her from the family home. For Joel, the lack of certainty about his mother's stability, plus the failure to process his feelings caused by the trauma of his mother attempting suicide, eats away at his own mental capacity. This results in him spiraling out of control, committing a violent crime, and losing his grip on reality as well. The unknown is also present in the theme of the supernatural. Whether it's witches, demons, angels, or monsters, the supernatural is scary because the very existence of these things defies the bounds of contemporary scientific understanding. One of the most common fears that is rooted in our childhood psyches, the supernatural distorts our understanding of the world because it doesn't fit within it, creating fear in the minds of the audience and characters because we don't understand what it is or what threats it poses to us, taking advantage of the fear of the unknown and the monster under our childhood bed. This has been used in a number of different horror films, some of which have been discussed below, including Mother's Angels. However, it serves different purposes for each film. In the film A Dark Song, the supernatural plays the part of both the threat and the saviour. Sophia attempts to contact the supernatural in the form of her guardian angel, performing an ancient ritual in the confines of a rural home with the help of a modern-day shaman. The feeling of being trapped in a liminal space between the real and the unreal, as well as being physically trapped in a house under the shaman's orders, creates a strain on Sophia, leading to the psychological stress which exacerbates her will and sacrifice to connect with the supernatural. This combination of mental decline and the blurring of the real and the unreal makes the audience confused as to whether she is going to be trapped in this nightmare forever, playing on our concerns of being separate from the people we love and being kept in a state of torture and torment. Much like in The Babadook, the supernatural in this film works as a metaphor for the effects of not dealing with grief. Being unable to process our grief means that you cannot move on from it. Therefore, it haunts and tortures us, like the demons in the two films haunt and torture their protagonists. It is only when the characters face their feelings that they are then able to understand them and move past them, dispelling the fear of the unknown, which is the power that makes these monsters scary, and ultimately getting a happy ending. Contrastingly, Robert Eggers' 2015 film The Witch utilizes the supernatural in a more ambiguous way for a not-so-happy ending. The film is an exploration into the inexplicable nature of tragedy and the effects that this can have on a familial unit. However, Commode postulates that the supernatural aspect of the film can be taken in one of two ways. The first being that the supernatural threat does indeed exist, coming from a haggard, ghoulish witch and the family's goat Black Phillip, who is actually the devil. Thus, as Tyberg suggests, creating fear through the supernatural existing beyond our knowledge of the world, and posing an unknown threat to us and the characters. The second understanding of the film is that the supernatural elements are actually rooted in the mind, possibly as a result of the paranoia of the times created by their religious obsession with sin and punishment, which invites horror into the home, or possibly just a fungal-induced mass hallucination. Again, this reading of the film is preying on the audience's fear of the unknown, through not knowing if we're being presented with an objective or subjective reality. The supernatural is a key feature of the horror in Mother's Angels, with the audience being left to question the nature of the reality of the supernatural and what threat it poses to the characters. Both Joel and the audience are never certain if the angel is real, what its agenda is, or if it's just a drug-induced hallucination. With these facts only made clear at the end of the film, I'm utilising the fear of the unknown by giving the audience as little information as the character has about the supernatural being. Within my film, I also seek to create tension and uncertainty, playing with the family dynamic and making it unclear if Joel's family can be trusted. This is once again playing on the fear of the unknown, but looking at it through the theme of family. Many of the horror films that have influenced Mother's Angels create horror through subverting the audience's preordained ideas about family. Family is seen in society as a permanent, loving and safe institution. So, when one or all of these perceptions are turned on their head, the filmmaker is preying on the audience's existing fears of their family falling apart. The breakup of the nuclear family can make the audience feel unstable, which I look to exacerbate through the suggestion of the father's affair and the breakdown of the parents' relationships in my film, Mother's Angels. The majority of the family-based horror in Mother's Angels comes from the mother-to-son relationship. Within the horror genre, mother characters often fall into three different classifications: the bad mother, the unhinged mother, and the protector mother. The bad mothers are characters who are domineering and manipulative, damaging their children until they become the monsters of the film. This type of portrayal was evident in Robert Eggers' The Witch, as the gradually unravelling and almost abusive relationship between Thomasin and her mother Catherine results in Thomasin becoming the witch the whole family fear her to be. The unhinged mother is evident within the films Hereditary and The Babadook. Both Annie and Amelia become unhinged and shrew-like, resulting in them being unable to fulfill their maternal responsibilities, neglecting their children and putting them in danger. Whilst protector mothers will endure extreme pain and terror or go to any length to protect their children, such as Donna Trenton battling the family's rabid dog in order to protect her son in the film Cujo. The Haunting of Hill House, however, provides a more complex portrayal of motherhood, combining all three of these existing archetypes. Through her desperation to protect her children, Olivia is driven to believing she must kill her children in order to save them, therefore being the bad, the unhinged, and the protector all at once. Within Mother's Angels, I've also looked to blend the traits of these archetypes in order to make Siobhan a combination of all three. Siobhan displays traits of the bad mother as she manipulates and drugs Joel. She is unhinged as she allows her mental illness to get in the way of her parent role in keeping her son safe, whilst she also displays traits of the protector as she wishes to save her son from this world, taking him with her to one she thinks will be better. In conclusion, the three themes of mental illness, the supernatural, and the breakdown of the familial unit have all been used to create horror by some of the best horror films and series in recent years. It is clear to see that the majority of fear surrounding these topics relates to the innate human fear of the unknown. These filmmakers have successfully preyed on our biological fear of uncertainty, whether this be related to our minds, families, or demons from other realms. I have used my research journey to help shape my understanding of how I can use these themes and fears to create horror within my film, Mother's Angels.